Okay, we're live. Okay, great. So as I was saying, the portion of Shelach, and a common Hebrew word that you might have heard related to this word Shelach, the same Hebrew root, is a shaliach. A shaliach. Okay? A shaliach is someone who you sent out on a mission. When we have visitors from Israel, that is the word that we sometimes use. They're coming in that capacity as a shaliach. They're sent to us to do what they do, to teach. And another way you might have heard that same root has to do with the person who leads the davening. Who is the person who leads the prayer service? What is the name for that person? Shaliach Tzibor, which is that same Hebrew root as the Parsha this week, Shelach. Shliach Tzibor. Tzibor means community. And so Shaliach Tzibor, the one who is sent out on behalf of the community. And where is that person sent out? What is that person sent out to do? To speak to God, to speak to Hashem, to be the messenger on behalf of the community before God. And that's a pretty remarkable thing. When we call our cantor, when we call Charlie Scott, when we call Nat, anyone who's leading the services, a Shaliach Tzibor, what we're saying is, we've sent you to go before God on our behalf. Now do a good job. Say the prayers well, because you're our messenger. And it's that same idea that really we get from the name of this week's portion, Shelach. Now, the messengers that are sent out in the portion have a different mission.
Yeah,
Okay? Their mission is to scout the land of Israel, to scout the promised land. We've been hearing about Eretz Yisrael for how long now in the Torah? Since when? We're in Bamidbar in the book of Numbers. How many books have we been talking about this journey that we're on? Since the very beginning. Since the Jewish people began really with Abraham, when God turned to Abraham and said, these are part of the promises that I'm making to you are not only will you have a Goy Gadol, a great nation, but that great nation will inherit a beautiful land. And part of your destiny is not just to be a great people, but to be a great people in a specific place. And part of your destiny is tied to the land. And you cannot overstate the value of Eretz Yisrael, of the land of Israel, both in the imagination of the Bible and the biblical worldview, and in our own religious lives. You cannot overstate how primary the land of Israel is to the spirituality and to the connection that a Jewish person has with our faith. And so that's important to keep in the background as we see this portion, because part of what the scouts' issue has to do with their appreciation of the land and their description of the land. So any questions before we actually turn to the portion? And I have people on mute, but if you raise your hand, I'll be able hopefully to see you, and that way I can make sure you're unmuted. Anybody? All right. Okay, good. So let's jump right in, and we'll go right into the first verse. Let me see here. All right, everyone can see okay, right? Just give me a nod. We're good? Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses, saying, we're in chapter 13 now, Yud Gimel. Shlach lecha anashim. Send out for yourselves Shelach lecha, right? It's not just send out, but send out for you. We'll talk about what that lecha is actually doing there. It's very, very interesting. Anashim, men, okay? Vayaturu et Eretz Canaan, and they should scout the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. That word vayaturu, okay, in modern Hebrew, it has the resonance of like a tour, right? Letayer, to do a tour.
Yeah, right.
Okay, but here really to scout it more in the sense of almost military scouts. Now, they're called spies, the Miraglim. They're called scouts. I think scouts is probably a nicer way to refer to them. Spies makes it seem like they're kind of hiding and darting around, but their role is to really see if it actually makes sense to go into this land. From a logistical point of view, is it safe to enter? Okay, what are we really going to find there? And part of the theme of this parsha, I think, is faith and trust. God has told the Jewish people again and again, go to this land. It's a good land. It's flowing with milk and honey. It's where you should be. God promised us again and again, go there. And you might think to yourself, well, if God promised it, why do we need to scout at all? Why do I need to confirm what God has already told me? Can't I just say, all right, God says it's good. It's good. I don't need scouts to come back and prove it. And that's a big part of the rub here too. We're going to see that question of having faith in what's to come versus allowing our fear and our uncertainty to get the best of us. Okay, that's very, very relevant, I think, to a lot of us. Also, we are thinking about what's to come. We're thinking about the coming months. To what extent can we trust? Okay. Send scouts to look at the land, Asher ani noten livnei Yisrael, that I have given to the people of Israel. God reminding us, I've already given you this land. I've already told you it's good. Ish echad. Okay. Send one man, lemate avotav, from the tribe of his father, their ancestral tribe, so really one per tribe. Tishlachu kol nasi bahem. You shall send every nasi bahem. What is a nasi?
A president.
What is a nasi?
President.
Okay, so president, right? And certainly, before it meant president, it meant prince, really someone who's in a position of authority. And thinking, not 100 years, not 1,000 years, but a couple thousand years back, what was a nasi really? More of just a leader. They have it translated here as chieftain. But what you can say is, yes, the most important, influential leaders of the tribes, these are the ones who you want to send. Why send a nasi? Why send a leader on this mission? If you're going to send anybody,
the people will trust them. Whatever they'll say.
Good. So people trust a leader. At least they did. They used to. And beyond that, the leader is somebody who really has the ability to do a mission like this. This was no easy task. They had to go, and it was very important, very serious. You want to send somebody who's up to the challenge. You don't want to send somebody who is going to go and not do a good job, because this means everything. Everything the Jewish people were doing up to this point was leading them toward this land. And so there was a lot riding on this report. What would the Jewish people do if they were not going toward the land of Israel? Where would they be going instead?
Back to Egypt.
Backwards. And they say many, many times in Bamidbar, let's just go back. Many times in Bamidbar, they say, it's not really worth it. Let's turn around and go home. Back to Egypt, meaning, let's just be slaves. It's easier. And there is a lot riding on this because the alternative to going forward into the land is going back to slavery. And that is not a small point. That was a real alternative for them because they say it again and again. We might as well. Sharon, did you have
No, I'm sorry. No, I was hoping, I'm sorry, I was hoping that you might explain this Shelach thing with the Shelach Lecha. I'm just very curious.
Good, very good. So two famous Rashis dealing with this, but I'll show you both of them. How about that? Okay, the first is this. Shelach Lecha. Rashi asks a question. Lama nismecha parashat meraglim? Why is this the story of the spies, of the scouts, connected leparashat Miriam, to the story of Miriam from last week? What happened last week? Miriam spoke out against Moses, Lashon Hara, criticizing Moses. That was the very end of last week's portion. Rashi wants to know, why is Miriam speaking against Moses connected to the story of the spies? Because in Rashi's mind, everything in the Torah happens for a reason. I happen to agree with Rashi.
Is he preparing us that the spies will come back and complain like Miriam did?
Beautiful. So, Sarah, you've got the hook. That's where Rashi's going to go. Rashi believed that there's no accident in the Torah. If last week's portion ended with a story and this week's portion begins with a story, those two stories are connected. And what Rashi says is that is to teach you that the spies saw how Miriam spoke Lashon Hara against Moses. Okay? The spies witnessed that, and still they did not take a lesson from her. And they come back, and ultimately their report, not to spoil it, will be speaking Lashon Hara against the land, saying that we shouldn't be going to this land. And that's really fascinating. Velo lachu musar. Anyone who has taken one of my other classes knows the word musar means Jewish ethics, learning how to be a better person. Rashi says they didn't take that musar.
They didn't learn from it.
They didn't learn anything. They saw Miriam speaking Lashon Hara. It didn't affect them. They spoke it too. So that's the first point I wanted to bring. And interesting. Rashi didn't invent that, by the way. That comes from an earlier midrash that Rashi is just pointing out to us. Now on to Sharon's question.
Thank you.
Why does it say Shelach Lecha? Send to yourself, for yourself. You know, there's another portion that has the word Lecha in it. It's in Genesis, in Bereshit.
Lech Lecha.
Lech Lecha. And when you start to connect the two ideas, it really is fascinating. God says to Abraham, Lech Lecha, go out to the land that I will show you. And here, Shlach Lecha, send out to the land. There is a real parallel between those two moments. But here's the difference, and this is the key difference. Abraham went with total faith. He went toward the land. The spies, exact opposite. And what we're getting here in Shlach Lecha is, in a sense, the opposite story of Lech Lecha. And when you start to see that those words are the same, you get that connection. Avraham went to the land in perfect faith. The spies went in the opposite manner. In the opposite manner. So that's just my own drush. Now let's see what Rashi says. Everyone see the Hebrew here? I'll do it in the Hebrew. I'll translate so you get a real feel like you're in the yeshiva. Leda'atcha, to teach you. Okay? When Rashi says leda'atcha, it means for your knowledge. Dat is knowledge. Ani eini mitzaveh lecha. God says, I am not commanding you. I'm not commanding you to send out spies. Im tirtzeh, if you want to, shlach, then send. So what is the meaning of lecha for Rashi, for yourself? It means do it on your own accord. Do it because you want to do it, not because I'm commanding you to do it. And God, according to this, did not command the sending of the spies. It was Moses' decision as a human being, as a leader. And I'll take a hand in a second, but I just want to share one more thought about it. God didn't command it because God already promised the land is good. So why should you need spies? Only send them if you don't believe me and you want to do it for yourselves. If you want to double check God's promise, by all means, go for it. Sei gesund. But I'm not telling you to do it because I already told you the land is good and you don't need to do it. You shouldn't have to. Joel.
I was just thinking, is there a parallel to what God told Abraham with Lech Lecha, that do it on your own volition? If you want to go, go, instead of being a definite command?
Yeah, I think you could make that parallel too. But the difference by Avram is he goes, no questions asked. He has faith. He goes with courage. Whereas you'll see in the report of the spies, what they say is really don't go. We shouldn't go. We should be afraid. We should turn around. We should stop. It's not worth it. It's too dangerous. And you see in the model of Abraham and in the model of the spies, almost opposite reactions there. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Yeah.
I was just thinking that in their preceding experiences, Abraham and the Israelites had different experiences altogether. They were in the wilderness for 40 years, suffering for 40 years. And Abraham didn't suffer before God told him to go out to Canaan.
Good. If you're going to make that connection, let's be honest about it. The Israelites were wandering. They had the experience of being slaves. They had suffering. They had slave consciousness that was built into them in a way that Abraham didn't have. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't fault them too much. Maybe it wasn't their fault.
Could it also be that this was a different generation? Because don't forget, we're generations away. We wandered for 40 years to get rid of all of those people. So
yeah, well, we're going to see. We're going to see what the punishment is for what's called the sin of the spies. You know, the extent to which we consider their actions to be sinful is a question for us. You know, I see them as fearful. I see them as doubting in their faith. I wouldn't call someone who is doubting their faith a sinner. I wouldn't punish someone for that. But let's see what happens. That's part of this too. You know, we all have lapses in faith. We all have fear and we all have doubt. Doesn't make us bad people. Last point, and then we'll go on. Joel.
I was also, if you consider Miriam's sin, what you call a sin against speaking bad about people, why do you say that this is the same type of sin that the spies are going to do?
Well, that's what Rashi says, that there's a connection. What the spies do, what the scouts do, isn't an infraction in speech. Because when they come back, it's a report that they're offering.
Right.
And so he makes that connection based on their speech, the way their words affect others. And if the words that they use cause some kind of negative implication, which they do, then there's your connection. You know, your words that have somehow made a situation worse for another or for the Jewish people. But that's really Rashi's connection. Should we go a little further? All right, Yalla. Vayishlach, verse 3. Vayishlach otam Moshe mimidbar paran al pi Adonai. And Moses sent them out by the word of God, by the command of God. All right, so there's a little bit of a contradiction, right? I thought Rashi said that it was Moses' choice. Here's the Torah saying, well, by the word of God is why he did it. Kulam anashim Rashi v'nei Yisrael hema. They were all men who were leaders among the people Israel. They were all leaders. Okay, so we talked about that already. We don't need to overdo that point. They were men of high esteem, men who you would expect a lot from. Okay, typically we hope that we can expect a lot from our leaders. We expect that our leaders will work with courage and with honesty and with all the good qualities that we want. And then the Parsha lists who went, some of the names, okay, from the tribe of Reuven, from the tribe of Ephraim. One small detail, all right, that is very interesting. When we get to the name of one person in particular, Joshua, Yehoshua, we find out that his name was not always Yehoshua, okay? We find out that his name originally was Hosea. And at the moment right before the spies go out, Moses changes his name to Joshua. Ele Shemot Anashim Asher Shela. These are the names of the men who went out. Vayikra Moshe leHoshea, and Moses called Hosea ben Nun Yehoshua, changing his name to Yehoshua. Okay, this is important just because who is the leader following Moses? Who is the one who really takes the command after Moses passes away in the land at the end of the Torah?
Joshua.
It's this very person, Yehoshua, okay? And this is a little hint that there's something very special about this man in particular. There were two of the spies who did not agree with the other spies and gave a good report. Do we know who they were? Caleb, and Yehoshua were the two spies who came back, we'll see in a moment, and actually gave a good report. Or at least disagreed with the spy's bad report. Sharon, quick point.
Just a quick question. Does Yehoshua have anything to do with saving?
That's the meaning of the name.
Okay.
That's the meaning of the name.
Right.
Rashi tells us very explicitly, by giving him the name Yehoshua, it is a compound of Hosea, which means to save, and Yah, God.
Okay.
God may save. And that's the meaning of his name. Once the Yud is added on, God will save.
Very good.
God will save.
Thank you.
Ana Hashem Hoshiana.
Right.
Have you heard that?
Of course. That's
Right?
what I
And
was thinking
in
about
many,
it.
many
Sure. Yeah.
moments, right?
Mhm.
God, please save us. That's what we're saying. And that is the meaning of Joshua's name. Rashi says that Moses prayed for him, may God save you from the evil counsel of the other spies. Meaning, Moses knew something was up with the other spies. And he wanted to bless Yehoshua in particular, his disciple, to not be influenced by these other guys who he knew were going to maybe go down the wrong path. Very interesting. Very interesting. And Yehoshua, of course, is really Moses's great disciple who goes on to lead the people after Moses passes away. Okay. I want to take us a little further into the story, right? We haven't even gotten to the spies really yet and what they're doing. We've just given all context and prelude. So we'll do some more. Vayishlach otam Moshe. Again, Moses sent them to scout the land. And Moses sent them to scout where first? Alu Zeba Negev. Go up in the Negev. Go in the south. Okay? And start in the south. Why start in the south? Interesting enough, Rashi says that the Negev was the worst part of the land. It was the least able to be inhabited. It was, the Negev is very, very difficult to live in, dry and hot, right? Has anyone spent some time in those southern portions of Israel? I mean, it really, this is the part of the land that you would go and say, oh my gosh, this is not such an easy place to settle in. And he wanted the spies to see that first, like a merchant who shows the prospective buyer inferior goods and then shows them the best. Start with the Negev, start with the part that's not so great, and as you make your way north, you're going to start to see just how beautiful and wonderful this country is. And then by the time you get to the end of your tour, you'll be convinced. You'll be convinced. That's the idea there. Okay. See what kind of country it is. Ureitem et haaretz. Mahi. Mahi. What is it like? You have to realize they didn't know. They were going totally on faith. We have a promise that this place is good. Do we know, really? I mean, if someone told you, get on a plane, you're going to a place that's great. You've never seen a picture of it. You don't know anything about it, but just go and trust that you'll have a good time. You don't even have a hotel booked, but I'm just telling you, just go and trust it'll be okay. What is your first reaction? What kind of place is it? Where am I getting off the plane? Am I going to have accommodations? Is there going to be food I can eat? Am I going to be able to meet people there? Or is it going to be a disaster? Jewish people, they needed to know. Mahi. Ve'et ha'am ha'yoshev alecha. And the people who are living there now. There was already a sense that we're not going into a land that's empty. There are other people, perhaps others dwelling there. And we certainly will have to engage in some military conflict. Hechazakhu, are they strong? Harafe, or are they weak? Are they going to be the kind of people who we cannot fight against? Hamathu, Imrav, are there many people living there? Or are there just a few? Is the country in which they dwell good or bad? Are there towns they live in open or fortified? That's really a military question. Can we go and really fight and be successful, or are the towns fortified? Are they defended? Is the soil rich or poor? Is it wooded or not? A lot of questions. What is your reaction to these questions? These are questions that Moses is asking the spies to find answers to. What is your reaction to Moses asking so many questions about the land as a leader?
As a leader? Not as a leader.
What do you think? Or just in general, why is Moses, is this a leader taking practical steps, or is this a man who should have had more faith? Gail?
He was worried about his people.
Okay. Okay. So you could say on the practical level, I see Ben raised a hand. I'm glad you're here, Ben. You could say on the practical level, he's a leader. Okay, we have to know. I'm sending my people into this place. I need to know all the details. I need to have everything straightened out in advance.
You're
Otherwise,
going into an unknown place.
that's right. Otherwise, in good conscience, I can't send them. I see Ben raised a hand. Let me try to unmute you, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Basically, no matter how much you trust someone, you need to know what you're looking for. You could say this is great, but a great, like, if vacation place, a great place to be a beach resort, but also could be like a nice, like, quiet, like, mountain retreat.
Yeah,
And you need to prepare differently for each.
that's awesome. How do we prepare? Not just on the military level, but what do we need to know to be ready to come into the land if that's where we're headed? Nat's shaking his head. I'll just unmute Nat.
There seems to be a discrepancy here, which has always troubled me when I've read this passage. I also looked up the word amachi. It's a very interesting word when you look it up. But the discrepancy is Moses never said that to the Jewish people before. Why does he ask them now? Because God gives him a commandment. Now God gives him a choice. So why is it all of a sudden he's explaining things when this is not his habit? He takes things right away, the bull by the horns, and he goes out there, he said, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Why now? Why now is a good question. If they've made it this far, why not ask these questions from day one? You could almost expect that earlier in Shemot, right after leaving Egypt, they would say, where are we going? What kind of land is it? I mean, I think part of it is because now they're close. Now it's coming to the point where we're close. We can almost taste it. We can feel it. We can start to see it. Now we need to know, well, okay, what are we getting into here? Back then, it was just a dream. Now it's becoming a reality, and we want to take those practical steps. So let's see a little more. Take pains to bring back some of the fruit of the land. Okay, that's very interesting. What Moses requests of the spies as part of their mission is to bring back something. Not just to go and scout the land, but we want proof. Not just visual proof that you've seen it. We want to taste this fruit that God's been talking so much about and see if it's really as good as God says it is. And what's funny, to think about fruit and to think about food in the context of the wilderness and in the Midbar, food was a very, very big deal. We saw in last week's portion, what were the people complaining about? Among everything else? Having enough meat? Filling their stomachs? Okay, earlier in the Torah, the issue of the manna that's coming down, and the question of, is the food going to be good enough in the land of Israel? We saw in another part of the Torah, the Jewish people saying, we missed the food in Egypt. It's funny, the level at which the Torah seems to assume that people think with their stomachs. But it's true. On a very practical level, do I really want to go to this place? Is the food going to be to my taste? Is it going to be what I want? Or do we go back to Egypt? As bad as it was there, at least they had good food. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. These are the kinds of things that motivate human beings. And we also know that food is the source of life. So not just taste, but are we going to have enough to sustain our life there? That's this question, Uma haaretz, is the land rich or poor? Is the land rich or poor? The land itself, is it going to sustain us? Okay. So let's see what happens. The spies go up. Via Alu. They, in their way, they make Aliyah. They go up. And they go up into the Negev. And they come to Hebron. Okay. Interesting. Rashi says, what do we know is in Hebron? What famous site is in Hebron?
Graves of the patriarchs.
I heard it.
The graves of the patriarchs.
Yeah. Kivrei Avot. Kivrei Avot. The graves of our patriarchs, which are believed to be there in Hebron. Rashi says that Caleb, one of the spies who gave a good report, went alone and prayed at the graves of the patriarchs, offering a prayer that he might be helped not to give way to the enticement of the other spies and to join in their counsel. That's really beautiful. Caleb and Yehoshua and Joshua too were not like the other spies. And here Rashi's telling us Caleb sensed that something was wrong on their mission with the other spies, so he went to the graves of the patriarchs to pray for wisdom, to pray for guidance and for help. I love that image. I just love thinking about that. And I love the idea that we can go to the graves of our ancestors to ask for help. That's a beautiful idea. It really is. It really is. So they come, and I want to fast forward us a little bit to what their report actually is. They reach Eshkol, and they bring some grapes, right? Because Moses had asked them to bring some fruit back, and some pomegranates and some figs. These are the fruits of the land, right? These are among the 7 species that the land is known for. And at the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting. Vayashuvu mitura aretz miketz arba'im yom. What does 40 days remind us of?
40 years.
Flood.
I heard a couple things. Sarah says 40 years of wandering. What else?
Days.
Ed?
Flood.
Okay, a flood by Moshe, by Noah. What else? Moses, right?
Moses on the mountain.
On Har Sinai. Okay. So this was I think by referencing the number 40, we're getting a lot of other images coming up, but a way of pointing us toward the fact that these 40 days have a significant implications and a significant effect on what's to come. This was not just a little tour around Israel and then back and nothing changes. These were 40 days that really mark a transitional point. Okay. Are we ready to see the spies report? Any questions up till now? I know I just went a little quickly. Okay. Here's the report. Vayelchu v'yavo'u el Moshe. The spies went and they came to Moses. Why does it say they went and they came? All right, that's an interesting question. Ve'el Aharon, and to Aaron. Ve'el kol adat b'nei Yisrael, and to all the people of Israel. El midbar paran, back in the wilderness now. Okay. Ve'yashivu otam davar, and they gave over a report, literally a davar, a word. Ve'yet kol ha'edah vayar et pri haaretz, and they showed off some of the fruit that they brought back from the land. They're ready to make their report. Why does the verse say that they went and they came? Rashi says they went in the wrong spirit and they came back in the wrong spirit. Both their going and their coming was misguided. And this is what they told him. This is their report. And I want everyone to pay careful attention. We're going to really kind of focus on this report now for the end of the class, the language, the implications of it. Vaisaprulo, and they spoke. Vayomru, and this is what they said. Banu el haaretz, we came into the land. Asher shalachtanu, that you sent us. Vegam zavat chalav udvash hi. And indeed, it is a land flowing with milk and honey. It is as good as you said and as God promised. In that respect, vizeh priya. And here are some of its fruits: the grapes, the figs, the pomegranates, right? What else? Olives, the delicious things that come from the land of Israel. This is good. This is good. And here's the kicker. That was the first part. Now we go down. Ephes. Ki az ha'am hayoshev. However, the people who are there are strong. Ve'arim betsurot gedolot me'od. And the cities are exceedingly strong and fortified. V'gam yalidei ha'anak ra'inu sham. And we saw their Anakites, dangerous people already living there, some who are much stronger and much larger than us. And they go on. Amalekites dwell in the Negev. Who were the Amalekites? Who was Amalek?
They're enemies.
Dangerous, vicious enemies of the Jewish people who attack the Jewish people again and again and have led to incredible amounts of suffering. They're there. But the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites and Canaanites, okay? The land is indeed flowing with milk and honey. But it's very, very dangerous for us to go there. We have other people who are living there. Even though God promised us, we cannot promise that they will not attack us, that there won't be death and destruction. And that's a big warning. That's a big warning. And it's a warning that is really based in their inability to imagine that they could succeed going in. Because now at this point, their speech is cut off. So what they don't say is, yes, it's very dangerous, but we should go anyway. What they say is, it's very dangerous, and what's the implication of the spies report? ...
Shouldn't go.
Forget it. Forget it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's too dangerous. Either go back, go somewhere else. Okay. There are many, many moments in life for all of us in which we come to a crossroads and we have a choice. We can go forward even though we're afraid, or we can turn around and justify in our minds that we shouldn't go forward because it's too dangerous or too risky. The spies, to me, are the voice in our heads that say, don't try, don't go, give up, turn around, you're not good enough. And Caleb and Joshua, who we're going to see in a moment, are the spies who are the voices that say, we can do it anyway. We have to try. We have to try. Look at this. Oh, by the way, a very famous teaching on this verse. What does the word ephes really mean?
Zero. Zero.
Zero. In counting in Hebrew, we begin with ephes, zero. What are the spies saying when they use the word ephes? We are like nothing.
Mm.
We are zeros. We can't do it. We are like nothing compared to them. And if you've ever thought of yourself as nothing, that's the voice of the spies
Mm.
on an emotional level, on a psychological level. Caleb, Vayahas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe. Caleb silenced them. Caleb says, no, 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 no. We need to turn that voice off immediately. Vayomer, alo na'aleh. Let us surely go up, from the same root as aliyah.
Right.
Let's make aliyah, everybody. Let's do it. Right? V'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchala. We are surely able. Yachol is to be able to do something.
Mm.
Caleb's words are some of the most encouraging, beautiful words in the entire Torah. Let's go up. We can do it. Let's go up. We can do it. All the fear aside, we have what it takes. We've overcome more than this, and we can continue on. If you want inspirational words to put on your mirror in the morning, Caleb's words from this Parsha, Yahol Nuchala, we are surely able to do it. Okay. Question, points. Gail?
All right, we're all living like that now, making decisions whether we should go on with doing certain things and not doing certain things. It's a big deal for some
Yes.
of us. We've been stuck in so long, and you know, just to get the courage to go out, sometimes it's difficult.
So let me be clear. I really, really appreciate you saying that. I'm not saying that this portion is giving you a reason to go and go join a big gathering or event or do anything that is not safe.
No, of
God
course not.
forbid. Don't take Caleb's words to heart and say, "Oh, I'll just run out and leave, you know, and join with other people and not worry about the dangers." The dangers are real. We still have to be safe. We still have to take precautions. And in our day, especially, kind of leaving the Torah aside for a second, maybe we should be more like the other spies than like Caleb. Maybe we should be saying, we really shouldn't go right away. You know, it's funny how this Parsha has kind of taken maybe a different twist based on the realities of this pandemic. Let's not go up right away. Let's not go back to shul right away. Let's wait. And Caleb, if you want to run, you can run ahead, but we want to be safe. Interesting how the world that we're living in sometimes really affects the meaning of what we understand in the Torah. Joel.
Maybe we shouldn't be so judgmental about the whole Parsha. Maybe it's just a story about how 10 guys saw it one way and the other two saw it a different way.
Very nice. I love that. Listen, I told you before, I don't call the spies sinners. I don't say the sin of the spies. I think, you know, their fear is legitimate. Would I have been someone who wants to run into a country that seems very dangerous and fight and take it over? That's not my disposition necessarily. I can relate to the spies. There is a teaching, by the way, I have to bring up the text in the Talmud, but one of the reasons that we have 10 in a minyan is because of the spies. Because of the 10 spies there were 12 spies, but when you take Joshua and Caleb out of the equation, it leaves you with 10. And that has to do with some of the language in the text. But it is interesting that at least one opinion is that we learn what a minion is because of these 10 guys. Fascinating, especially, if you start to open up this question of were they really so bad? Nat.
I say if God tells you it's okay, shouldn't it be okay? I mean, if God came to you and said, you can go out today because it's gonna be fine, would you say, well, God, I don't think so,
Yeah.
There's a virus out there, you wouldn't think that maybe God can control this?
I think it depends on how confident you are in your relationship with God, and how much you really feel that voice is the voice that's moving you in the right direction. I think everyone speaks with God differently, so I can't say too much about that.
Yeah, but God spoke with Moses and told him that the land was good and everything was okay, and he didn't recommend the spies go out. So the spies come back and say, well, we don't care what God said.
Yeah.
We're not going, and that's how I see it.
That is the traditional reading. That is the traditional reading, that what the spies did was a mistake, that they should have had the faith, that Moses should have had the faith to begin with, not even to worry about the spies and just to go. I hear that. I think that's a very legitimate traditional reading. Some people in this class are, and me included, are opening it up a little, but sure.
To me, I don't know if I'm on.
Yeah,
To me,
and then I saw
it's
Nat
like
and Alice, and we'll start to wrap up.
The history repeats itself. Here they're coming to a land that people are there, and they're going to, and the same thing happened now. That's the rebirth of Israel. People were there, and we back to our country.
So I appreciate Sarah's point. You're bringing it onto the level of the political, and we only have 2 minutes left before we have to end the class. So I don't want to turn this into a political discussion at the moment. But what I will say is you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right to say that when we think about modern Israel and what it means to be in the land in a way that's safe, the Torah opens that conversation, and that has been a part of the conversation forever. How do we live here in a way that's safe when there are others who live here too? That's nothing new at all. But more than that, I don't want to get into.
I don't want either.
Okay, another time, Sarah. All right, so let's take one or two more, and then we're going to wrap up for today. Nat, you've had your hand, and then sure.
Yeah, very quickly, the difference between the older and the newer generation was something called complacency. Mm-hmm. So they had people who now had their freedom, they had enough food to live on, and they're saying to themselves, why do we have to put ourselves in jeopardy? When we have, at least we can live. And this is not, I think, what God and Moses wants, just to live.
I like that. Why bother? We're comfortable enough.
And we see that today with what's going on right now. People say enough is enough. It's time to move on.
Yeah. What are the things that motivate us to move forward, and what are the things that keep us just in the status quo?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Good. Final points? Everybody, this has been a really good discussion. Alice?
Let's see, am I in?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that in a way, the negative from the spies kind of makes the positive even more important. There's a strengthening when you have to reach for it, and the spies make it even more so that in order to do what God through Moses wants for the people, you even have to strengthen yourself. So in a way, and I think part of what the spies are saying is, if you're going to go in there, let me tell you what we know. We know that you're going to have to prepare. So they prepare them that there's going to be some strong opposition. So
Yeah.
in a way, I think it's good.
There's an honesty, right? I would rather the spies be honest about what's to come than to just say, don't worry about it. We'll be fine. And I love your point about strengthening ourselves. The root that's used in the text is aliyah, to go up to the land. And it's used over and over again. In order to go into the land, you have to ascend. You have to make yourself worthy and able of go into the land. And that's part of it too, that there's a preparation, physical and spiritual. It's not just the preparation of the military, it's a preparation of your hearts to be able to be worthy of going in. So a lot in this Parsha, we didn't even scratch the surface. I feel like we never do. Maybe we'll have to I don't know. Thank God we get to study these Parshiot every year. I love Shelach. I think it's one of the most fascinating stories to get into. And really, just all I want to say is I appreciate everything that you brought to the class today. People had really good discussion points and good suggestions. I think what we saw is a kind of more nuanced picture of the spies. You might have gone into this class, having considered the Meraglim, the spies, as just this wicked bunch who come and really, speak negatively about Israel. But, maybe we got a little bit more of a sense of their humanity and their fear and how they just wanted to give an honest report. I think it's good to balance that out. And the larger question of our faith. Can we move into a situation with trust, with the sense that God has promised us that if we face with courage and if we move forward with courage, what we come to will be good? I'll leave it there. Okay, I thank everybody.
Thank you.
Let me turn the recording.